guess you do a roll call, right?
I do. Member Anderson?
Here.
Member Fisher?
Here.
Member Lawrence?
Here.
Chair or co-chair Lemieux? Here. And Member Lynch?
Here.
Just for clarity's sake, we had a handful of members resign for various reasons, to include Member Douglas and Member Zeidowitz recently.
I can't hear you when you speak.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was saying that we had a couple of members resign due for various reasons. One was Rob Douglas, and the other was Soledad Zeidowitz.
And John,
John Rossi,
before.
that was last year, yeah, but yeah.
he's still on the roster, though.
He's still on the roster. We've been trying to just keep people involved,
Okay.
yeah, so.
All right. Gary, you've got to leave at 6:45, right? And our primary objective is to get through this exercise today. So what I would suggest is, I guess I need to do item 3, so I'll do that. The chair and committee allocate 15 minutes during this item for individuals who would like the opportunity to address committee on any matter not listed on the agenda. Each person addressing the committee is asked to limit the comments to 5 minutes. Obviously, no one is here, so we'll skip on.
And there's no one attending on Zoom either.
And so we'll, if you're okay with it, we'll, committee sets the order of the meeting. We'll push the minutes back to take advantage of the time that Gary is here, and we'll do the minutes before we adjourn, if everybody's okay with that. All right. All right, so our activity for today is to, Drew can set this up for us, but is to pick 3 things that are doable that we can work on and hopefully accomplish out of these that have been surfaced by this committee. So, Drew?
Yeah, so, thank you. Up on the screen, what I did is everybody emailed to me what their top 5 list was. Some of you gave related strengths or related weaknesses and or other notes, and I put all that into a spreadsheet, and then I tried to find where there were similarities, and that was the whole point, to see if there was crossover in people's top 5s, and as luck would have it, there was some, not a lot. And so I ended up with 17 separate categories. And based off the conversation you all had last time, you were trying to get down to 3 to 5. And so that was not that. Some of you took information or notes from either the SWOT analysis or from the final list, generate from that, and said, I think this is what we should be working on. So I just included that. So now on these back boards are the top, I'll call them top 17 responses. And if you think I put your item into a category or box that you think was wrong or doesn't properly represent it, let me know, and we can make, I've got the paper, we can create an 18th one. But if you want to, you can certainly get up and walk around the room in the back where I've hung these all up there. I've given you stickers. I would ask you take 3 of the stickers, and probably anything but yellow would be fine. And it doesn't matter because it's in no particular order. I'm looking for your top 3 from that 17 on the back. So take your time, and I'm happy to provide, well, I was until Bill moved it, but Bill, I need that list back up, my Excel sheet, please. You may not know that, but you've taken, now it just says Drew Irvin, and I was sharing my screen, and that's not my screen, but anyway, here we go. But the list is up there. If you have questions, or if you want me to bring back up what you submitted,
Maybe just walk through it, because there's a couple of these I don't.
Yeah, so they're essentially.
Like activate landlord partnerships, I don't remember that, I might have missed it.
That was a specific comment that I think Ron Osterline provided.
Okay.
Which he had mentioned that in a prior meeting. The idea is, and again, I gave these titles to try to have a simplified way to talk about them.
Right.
Where's the one about the landlord? Oh, here it is.
Oh, yeah.
This says, encourage landlords to use leases to prevent commercial and their employees from utilizing on-street parking.
Oh, okay,
So that's very specific,
okay.
and I
Yeah.
call that activate landlord
Okay,
partnerships.
I got it, okay, all right.
And I think
All
I
right.
had made, if I may interrupt, I think I had made the
You made a
comment
comment, yeah.
about, that could tie into that, which was better enforcement. And every time we talk about enforcement, the comment is that we don't have the personnel to do that.
That's not true, we enforce.
So it's just on occasion, you know, and people know that, you know, like I mentioned, the employees out there that park in the 4-hour spaces, they say, oh, well, they only ticket the ones on the street, they don't do these, so I park here all day long. And I watch the employees walk over and, you know.
I'm just confused. It's just
Okay.
a question. But where is this exercise on? Is this on the agenda somewhere?
This is the continued conversation about setting an economic, the only item that's on there. It falls under that broad category.
Item 5.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
All right, are we good to wander up and read and vote?
Yeah, I think all this will look familiar to you once you're up there. And again, we use any color but
Yellow.
yellow.
Pin the tail on the donkey.
Yep. So where you see, like the listing, this is where other people had said, this is my objective, and then somebody said, yeah, it's mine also, and then other people had it on there. And so that's why if you see, like some of these, 2 people said this, so I put it on that heading, you know, one person, 4 people.
Long-term solutions for traffic.
Entrance to community, you know.
That was, they were one and the same. And that was Jeff's, and he was kind of talking more about long-term with, and the multi-modes of transit, train versus vehicles versus pedestrians.
How many stickers were you?
3. You better read them all first. You can put all in one if you want. You can put your thumb on the scale. Thank you. What's that?
Your last 2 choices.
Hey, I might appear to be funny, but I'm serious, Brett.
I know you are.
So Drew, is it fair to say the village is doing everything it can on the 41-176?
Yes, and the biggest part is obviously we are such a minor investor in that project, and it's yes is the answer. And here's what when I kind of got back and I looked at all of these, I saw that and I said, yeah, it is moving and it's going to happen in the next 5 years, I suspect.
There's nothing we're not doing.
That is correct. We're not holding it up. In fact, we're trying to make it happen. We're trying to find ways to help them make that happen. Them being IDOT. This one, the prioritized economic development initiatives, I think that's what we're doing now, right? To me, that was one. And to me, the measuring success, I thought that was something that's been part of our conversation all along. And so that's going to happen as part of, once we figure out what the priorities are, then go back and look at those, you know, how do we measure that our achievement of those?
Some of these you're saying, like, you know, interchange western corridor, that it's beautified here, beautified there, and some of these are cross.
Some of those, beautify to me were slightly different. Those were more like aesthetic improvements versus, these were more like land use decisions around the interchange, in my mind.
Okay, we're doing 3 dots, right?
3 dots, and you can put them all on one, 2 on one, Don't tear them in half, please.
Partial vote. I'd like to use 4, but maybe whether I peel one off. You know, and like the Stonebridge one, that could also be tied into this development. I mean,
But it's not CBD multifamily. It could be multifamily, but probably, maybe not, maybe it depends, but, Stonebridge is a standalone. Yeah,
I guess I look at both Stonebridge and Block 3 as like
Okay.
development, because I don't know where it comes from.
Yeah, what, I mean, is there, realistically, is there anything we could do to Stone Bridge to push that along? Kind of probably a similar question for Block 3, with the money that may be on.
yeah, I think what Village could do is part of the land use planning that we're doing now with, missing middle conversation, or even, we updated our PRD ordinance, we kind of laid out and have communicated to the universe, we expect it to be redeveloped via PRD. And that implies greater in density than what's there. I don't know that what more we could do, other than if the village wanted to study that a little harder and maybe even signal a range. But it's very difficult to see it in the absence of a plan to kind of go ahead and throw a number out there. Block 3, on the other hand, the village,
This is pretty
we
much the
know,
exercise we
the
did.
development community, we can be
A lot of
more
people came
specific
up here for the same.
about expectations of scale,
Comprehensive plan.
to better communicate what the village wants there. And some of that means, and certainly for Block 1, the redevelopment of that is make sure like the village kind of handicapped itself and that the underlying zoning allows 3 stories already on Block 1. But presumably they would want to use the PMD tool, but that PMD tool limits it to 2 stories. So it kind of like, there should be some clarity if the village really wants that and is okay with under, you know, the underlying zoning which allows 3 stories, that the PMD tool should be amended to say no more than 2 stories, except where the underlying zoning allows for greater. There's some things like that in the codes that can get cleaned up to clearly.
Okay, all right.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, some of these things are important, but if we can't do anything about it.
Yeah. Well, there's 2 front runner and then there's other.
Nice posters.
All right, so we've got beautify, high quality, long-term solutions, hopefully we're doing that. Embellish, what's embellish?
Embellishes industrial park, rephrase the study to what can be done to attract, retain businesses in the industrial park. We're thinking about coming back with two more stickers, and once the last ones that are standing.
Sure, that's a good idea.
Drew, they're crooked.
Just these, probably the night zone that came up here.
2 more choices?
That'll stand yet. Two more on the ones with 1 or 2 on.
I'm just curious, why would we have a choice between development and a nature preserve as a choice?
Critical, dude.
Where do you see that?
That makes no sense to me.
Tell me where you see it.
What are you looking at, Stonebridge?
Stone.
Yeah, I think, well, I don't know who provided that comment, want to expand on it?
I provided a comment, how long does it sit there? I mean, is anything ever gonna happen?
Longer than the bank?
Well, that's.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't think those are
I'd
fair
love to see
choices.
it
It's
develop.
like open space or development, and
It could be a combination. I think that's why I kind of summarized the topic, as ignite Stonebridge. Like, let's see something happen.
I'd like to ignite, yeah, both of
I
those.
can promise you, the owner's not gonna work with the Forest Preserve.
No, but to what the village's previously approved planned developments did have an element of I would call it,
Just the front portion.
yeah, the front 10 acres were preserved.
It's kind of like Block 3, though. I think the opportunity was lost.
The what?
Opportunity.
Well, I think in that window of time, I don't think forever. I think Block 3 is too great of a property. I mean, location.
Maybe not for your lifetime, but maybe for mine, forever.
No, can't be. Can't be.
What the hell is you? Yeah, but we can show walkers tonight. Gary, quit making fun.
What, Brad? Those are banned. Those are banned from your.
I don't see high-speed internet for free here, so.
That's why we're never here.
I can't throw anything at you.
So once again, though, I mean, is there something the village or this group can do to get Stonebridge going? It's a very worthy objective, but is there something we
No, I
can do?
think we need to ignite it, for sure.
But what will we do to do that?
Well, we have to realize that there has to be a profit incentive for anybody in the development community to do anything.
Okay.
And if we're going to address that need, we have to look at our restrictions, just like we passed on Block 3, and say, what's the greater good? You know, so, I mean, I think it's worthy of looking at,
So are you,
but not with what's being proposed today.
okay, so are you saying
Fair
the
enough.
village could go back and rezone that to allow more density or
Well,
what?
right now, it's been reverted to the original zoning.
At the request of the owner.
5-acre parcels.
Well, because it was in litigation.
He wanted a clean slate, right?
So now it's CE zoning, right? Which is an overlay zoning, which promotes nothing but somebody going through a process with no guarantee of success. And that's what's happened with most of the larger developments of recent history in town, is that people can spend all the money in the world, but if the board changes their mind at the last minute, they're out.
Now, the BCCBA is looking and, you know, everybody can participate in the update to the comprehensive plan. So that is looking at everything.
Yeah.
But, speaking of R5, we've had recommendations dating back to the 70s about our R5 district, and it seems to have fallen on deaf ears.
Again, we don't know where this comp plan update is taking us or this missing middle housing, but the early comments that I've heard from members of that board are that the idea of the R5 should be updated. I'm hearing that.
Well, I heard in 79.
TBD, fair enough. So here's the Stonebridge conversation. What else could the village do?
Yeah.
This group, what could this group do? This group could recommend to the village board to work with future developers to consider eliminating or reducing certain hurdles, for example, impact fees. You know, those are huge, right? Those are all costs to develop.
Demolition.
Right, I mean, there's different ways that the village can incentivize things that we don't own, but through the regulatory process or the subdivision codes, find ways to make it easier, which may signal to the development community, we're open for business. Reduce building permit fees.
Turn that off for a second.
No.
Is anyone watching live?
I have no idea, but this is recorded for certain. I just, if you're going to say something, Jeff, maybe you want to speak in general terms as a builder. You made a comment earlier about a house you were building and how the substantial building permit fee and the impact fees.
Impact fees, there was a lot that got pulled off from the farm.
Yeah.
It's identified as its own PIN number, but because nothing was put on that place until now, $45,000 says that you need to pay us because it's gonna affect our schools, our roads, all kinds of other stuff.
Park district, library.
Okay, and there's two 60-year-old people who are gonna move into it when they're done. They're not touching schools, they're not tapping into any more water because they pay for that in job markets. Just,
No.
wow.
Development costs are ridiculous.
Well,
Really, just in our community or
Yeah.
in general?
I'd say in your community. Okay.
Well,
In
Lake
Lake Forest,
Forest is 43,000.
Lake Forest is not great
Yeah,
either.
but there's not a lot of, that was a vacant lot. There was no house on it.
Right.
Correct. It was subdivided, you had to pay for that.
Right.
Okay, and
Forty-three and Lake.
objectively, it should be a case-by-case study. These people are 60,
But they could turn around and sell the house in a month.
Well, sure.
but they would be willing if they wanted to.
The justification for a demolition permit for 15,000 or whatever it is that there's a lot of damage caused to our roads through the demolition process, so we're gonna recoup it and segregate it to fix the roads. But
No, that's because.
Crude is running the same type of trucks on our roads every day to pick up our garbage.
It's maintaining budgets, you know, from big trucks that cut trees down to garbage that runs things around to brand new, you know, municipal employees. You have to have a new truck because you let them stay up there so many certain miles. It's just, there's a heavy weight, I guess is it, and that's just, you know, how the municipality budgets things. They maintain a budget by, you know, charging fees, raising fees.
I have an idea. I'm seeing this bleeding into this and the other, so we can combine those.
Fair enough.
And this goes along with block 3.
Yeah.
It should.
Yeah.
Same, yes, again, same. Again, and I should probably add this about, I should list what we talked about. Let me try and do that. I think I brought my markers up there.
And Brad, I mentioned that part of the forest preserve thing only because what the hell's going on with it? Is anybody ever gonna develop this? You know, what is the city doing to move this along?
They're not promoting.
That's what I'm saying.
It's a barrier to development going through the system here. It really is.
Yeah, I agree. You're saying if you were to change it, if there was.
I see no
Speaking
reason
off the
to
top
have,
of my head, if
I see
if
no
somebody-
reason to have E1 zoning in this community. There's no reason anyone needs 400,000 square feet of land to build a single-family house. It could be much better utilized and add a lot more benefit to the community.
A long time ago, I bartered for a house in trade for a house I was selling on Blodgett. It was 5-something Blodgett, 503, 501,
Right.
whatever the case may be. I bought that home in trade. I sold one. Those houses, I got charged $45,000 to repair, actually, no, to install a storm sewer because Moffett, Birch, Blodgett, and Washington all drained into this piece of property and filled it up. George Russell seized the day. $45,000. Because you're a developer and you're subdividing, I had to fix the water problems there. I didn't anticipate that when I was buying the property. I didn't put that in my budget insofar as like, try and resell things. And then I built one house because I was not sure what to do with the first one. And that smaller home was 3 bedrooms, not 4 or something.
The one Fred bought.
One that Fred bought, okay? And then I built a house next door. And that's when I got kicked with the I'm gonna call it a neighborhood fee, because I think that's how I associate it.
That's how the neighborhood ordinance, yep.
Yeah, okay, and so there was like, don't quote me hard on this, but it might have been $42,000 on top of the $45,000 I had to pay to put storm sewers because Lake Bluff couldn't handle it. I had to fix it. Okay, that's fine. When I sold that house on record, it sold for over $2 million. And Lake Bluff gets taxes based on that for the past 25 years. Open up your minds and look at what can really happen and get the long-term benefit of it as opposed to short-term bust. Pretty simple. It happens all the time. Redevelopment, kicking the teeth, and then a nice tax basis. If I have done, I don't know how many projects in town, I'll say at least 10, bought a piece of property, in my mind's eye, I improved the dirt. I love what I do, have fun building homes, I make that dirt look better. And it sells, story goes, Brad, how many done together, it sells for a lot more than that dirt was worth. And the taxes are based upon its value. Why not hold your breath for long-term tax incentive as opposed to kicking people in the teeth now?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in general terms, whenever a house is torn down and redeveloped, the tax assessment on the property triples because the tear down is worth less than 33% of the new build that sells.
Period.
Which was the premise for the discussions about Block 3. There was a study done on Block 3 as far as future tax revenues. There was a study done on Stonebridge about future tax revenues. The preponderance of the evidence shows that the existing homeowners in Lake Bluff benefit by new people coming into town, redeveloping property, and increasing our tax base because it spreads it out over a larger area,
And longer
larger
term.
population.
Long term. Taxes don't go down.
But nobody seems to buy into that.
Okay, so we've got, will those roll down a little bit?
Sorry. Can I have trouble to use the microphone so that they can record it better? Thank you, Paul.
I'm just gonna roll them down.
Oh, I thought you were gonna talk while you're over there.
Collectively, those two houses on Blodgett, when the real estate market in Lake Bluff was bigger, that's $4 million worth of homes there. Tax on that, and the house I bought, subdivided, was $500,000.
Hey, Brad, are you saying, for instance, if there was a change in zoning of Block 3, and a developer knew going in that they could,
All right, so we've got,
That's the biggest, they need to know what they,
Right.
then you
We
would
need
have
to,
10 developers maybe coming to present.
so we've got Ignite Stonebridge and then Block 3. So they're related activities. We've got Expand Multifamily Regulatory Controls to rewrite R5. And we've got High Quality Residential Development. What's the actionable part of high quality? Okay. western entrance to the community. Okay. Are we good with these?
It's obvious.
A lot of interrelation, for sure. And probably not a surprise based off the first few conversations.
It's in reference to what we talked about last time.
Yeah.
The real estate is the driver for, you know,
Economic development.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting. It is and it isn't, because at the same time, you know, the commercial properties that generate the greatest amount of property tax and sales tax are the auto dealers. And these are, from a service, these are higher service demands, right? When you're looking purely from the tax base and the village services and.
Cost of goods
and
sold.
even services of, but they also make up the community, right? The homes or the. what-
They also eat in our restaurants and.
No,
are-
right, for
become
sure.
a part of the community.
Right,
and-
yeah.
And change the whole character of the community. We've got all kinds of seniors living in single-family homes that would much prefer to downsize. And when they downsize, it would allow the neighborhood to change over. And it creates vitality and all kinds of benefits for a community.
So are these 4 things or are these 2 things? So is Stonebridge, from a tactical standpoint, is what we would want to do with Stonebridge different than what we want to do with expand multifamily regulatory controls and facilitate Block 3? I mean, are those 3 things, are they all different
I think
enough?
they're all one.
I think they're one. I agree.
And as time goes on, something else may open up like that.
So is,
Well, I would,
Well, I guess where I'm going to make a pitch for what I had proposed earlier, and that is, and Drew just spoke to it, is it always concerned me as a trustee, how stable is the sales tax revenue we're getting from the industrial area? You know, are they happy out there? Is there something they would like? Or is there, you know, in other words, we really want you here. Are you okay here? And if you're not, what is it we need to be thinking about to keep you here?
I would step into that this way. There's not a lot of industrial close. I owned a building on Skokie Valley, right? Grew out of it, looking for some place to stay close to. Went down the street on Rockland Road, right next door to Metro Self Storage.
Right.
A way better facility for me. My building sold for, you know, less than I put into it, but nonetheless, it got scooped up in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
The person I bought a building from moved over to the industrial park on east of Waukegan.
Okay.
And paid up for a building. A client of mine bought a building over there and is, you know, starting a brand new business over there because he lives in Lake Forest and doesn't want to go to Wheeling or Elk Grove Village or wherever the hell he used to go. Lake Bluff does not have enough commercial / industrial business space available. So that's always going to be hot. It doesn't stick around very long. Things sell there quickly, and people move in and bring their businesses with them.
I guess to your point, that the vacancy rates in the village have historically been extremely low in that area, just because,
Right.
not unlike housing, supply and demand, right? We have
right.
low supply, and demand is high, and it seems to be working.
It's an easy on, easy off, 41, 294. You know, a lot of people that have businesses over there live in the almost immediate area, within 5 miles, we'll say, 10.
So is it built out? Is there,
I believe it is.
No, there's that, but there's a handful, I'm gonna say 2 buildable properties, right by the Chevrolet dealership, but one of them, there's an approved plan for relocating the Jaguar dealership, but the owner is not in a hurry to do that, given the economy and where he is as a dealership. But he owns that and has a plan to do that. And then there's one to the north of that, but that's it. Those are the only green fields left, to my recollection, the best of my recollection.
And it comes into the idea about water retention, you know, stormwater management and all that stuff has a play when you go in there and push a whole bunch of strong structures and
Well,
blacktop up.
Drew, in that same line, isn't there an area along 41 that could also be developed on the east side of 41, the old post office, as you,
Oh.
Oh,
Yeah, 100%, all day, yes,
That-
yeah.
yeah, I mean,
But
that,
that's subject to change with, the interchange, you know.
But
There's
the
a whole
north-
bunch of controversy about that. People
Right.
are losing, you know, they're losing access to their properties, so the interest in it is become much less. The hotel, for example.
right,
When this whole interchange happens, it becomes
right.
dead
So
dirt.
that whole area, I would kind of put in with,
It's in these,
right, right. I'd put in with the light industry area, kind of, in terms of flux,
I
commercial.
don't think all of that area is in our planning. I mean, part of that area is not in, most of it's not, I don't think any of it's in incorporated Lake Bluff.
Some of it.
It is.
Some of it is,
Some is.
and it is,
small portion.
the village's current comprehensive land use plan calls for annexing it.
Yeah, but
What
again,
isn't, okay.
annexing, strip annexing has been talked about almost as long
This,
as.
it's not strip, I mean, we're already there, we're running along that service road, right, where the village went up to capture
get out to
sanctuary.
right.
Yeah, all that, yeah, and we have a water main there, it is likely that we will achieve that goal ultimately.
And the village had a proposal from someone looking to do a
Hockey rink,
hockey rink up there, and they would, were
Could-
they in incorporated, and they would have incorporated, or they were in the?
they wanted to annex to the village, and,
yeah.
and they couldn't reach a deal with the landowner.
No.
So, how many things have we got in front of us, and is it enough?
So I put kind of a headline of ignite/incent key development sites.
Okay, so is that one?
That's the headline.
Okay.
And then we can use Stonebridge and talk about the things I wrote down there,
Mm-hmm.
considering some of the hurdles. You can do the same for Block 3, and then under Block 3, the other hurdle there is the underlying zoning issues with the R5 code
Mm-hmm.
and the PMD tools and all that. And I think that gets all of that that's there.
Okay.
Did you share my memo with anyone here?
I did not.
Okay.
I can.
Well, I'm happy to have you share it, but
Okay.
I mean, one of the things that I recommended, because our R5 zoning district is so minuscule, why don't we look within other areas? We don't have to have all multifamily right next to town where most of it's already been developed to single family because our zoning is inadequate to address R5. Why don't we look to the R3 district, vacant parcel districts within the village that are owned by the village, or other areas in town where we can try to accomplish the goal, my goal anyway, of providing some alternative housing. We have one condominium in the entire village of Lake Bluff with a first floor master bedroom. Lake Forest has exploded with multifamily since we started talking about it in Lake Bluff. Over the last 3 years, it's gone crazy. There's people paying $6 million plus for rooftop condominiums in Lake Forest. And we can't get our arms around one 18-unit building. I mean, we're missing. And our residents aren't staying in the community, they're leaving the community. And the seniors that have contributed their lives to our community have no place to stay, and I think it's a shame. I really do.
That exact focus is that what's going on right now with that missing middle conversation is where do you want it? This initial conversation started with the CBD and the R5 because it's been there, it's there now. Do you want to, I think that there's a lot, seems to be some traction around that. The village talked about it on the 10 acres out west by
The
Jawa.
senior housing that we
Didn't happen.
before, right?
Yeah, so they looked at that site, but that could be, the reason why and how the consultant presented that was you can lay that over anywhere. Any, like, dare I say Stonebridge or other, like, or Zinni property or any, kind of, you can roll that out. And they had a range of, I think it was like 40 to 90 units. You can ramp it, dial it up and down, depending on what you wanted to put in there. And so that exact conversation is happening right now at the PCZBA. as part of this comp plan update? Where do you want it? So to your point is, yeah, oh, well, maybe we should look next to the downtown, but like where the Forest Bluff School is, those, you know, like if you go up and down the railroad tracks on
The green space.
the west side, where,
Listen,
Yeah.
that's why I mentioned it. There's
Yeah.
all kinds of places we could tuck in all kinds of alternative housing.
yeah.
But we never get past the starting point. And that's the
Well,
frustration.
it's, the conversation is happening right now.
And it happened 30 years ago.
No, but we gotta move beyond, we
I
gotta
know.
try it.
I know.
Small concern, you're pushing people into houses and doing as many as you can on the smallest piece of property to develop that space could also turn into ugliness, which would be my concern. You know, on 137 and 21, there's a restaurant there that does only breakfast only, and then there's a True Valley Hardware behind it. The balance between that, they're putting up, I mean, I wish we weren't being recorded, but some really non-Lake Bluff style homes, non-Lake Bluff style merchandise, not putting out Lake Bluff style stuff. If you were to take Casey Road and go out where it meets Peterson, the exact same developer is doing the exact same stuff there. If you go to the Hawthorne, quote, Melody area, and they race these things up, right? To me, it's like a 2022, 2023, 2024 architectural style, like bang, bang, thank you.
I would.
Same thing. Kinda gross, junk.
But I think, you know, you've got more experience with this than I do, but it seems to me that our processes seem, for the most part, to result in, you know, the sort of thing we'd like to see.
That's why we haven't done a whole lot of it. That's why Stonebridge is around.
Well, I mean, I look at, this isn't real estate, I mean, residential development, but, you know, I felt like, you know, the process worked for the target development.
It looks like all the targets though.
Well,
I don't think it does. I think it's smaller. They don't have formats that small, and the visual, the architecture is different,
yeah,
for sure.
I mean, it's different. My daughter drives all the way from Libertyville. She passes the Target out there to come to this one. So, I mean, I think it does look a little different. I think it looks different because ARB, you know, was very active. And so I guess I have more faith in the process that we're not gonna end up with the type of development you're talking about behind that restaurant. Wild Berry or whatever it's called.
Closing caption, Stonebridge, there were a lot of people very concerned about what's gonna look like there.
Yep.
And now it does look like anything
Yeah,
for that reason.
yeah.
Too many fingers, too many people, too much dictation, right? As opposed to let them do what they're gonna do and not hit them for 100 houses at $45,000 per neighborville fee. Let them spend the money on building something pretty
Yeah, okay,
and get people to come.
fair enough, yeah.
Well, you know, that was a big conversation at that last missing middle thing too, because, you know, they were looking at, what was it, scale, as opposed to, you know, one example that I can think of is along McKinley Road near the high school. There are a couple duplexes. There's a white colonial duplex that really looked very similar to a single-family house. That's the kind of thing I think that, I'm on the PCCBA as well, and that's the kind of thing I was hearing more as deal with things that fit the setting.
Yeah.
You know, not those ones you're talking that are popping up all over that, you know, I frankly think, okay, 20 years from now, what's that gonna look like? 20, you know, 30 years. But things that literally fit in, but it's a duplex, or maybe it's a fourplex or something, but you wouldn't really see it looking different than my house on, you know, the street or something, so scale-wise.
But times change, right? I mean, we're all living in the past because we're so familiar with Lake Bluff. Look at Northbrook Court. Northbrook Court has been converted into a rental development because big box and high-end sales stores didn't survive. I think we have to consider adapting to the times. Our economy isn't the same as it was when my parents grew up in Lake Bluff. Not everyone desires to be in a single-family house. A lot of these younger people never have an interest in owning a home because they've seen the trouble some of their parents have gone through. There are people that want to be renters forever, And those people aren't any worse than people that want to be single-family homeowners. All you have to do is look at the train station and the shuttle buses picking up people from Abbott and Abby every day. They'll come and pick up their beer at the brewery or have a cocktail, and then they get on the train and go to town because there's no housing for them here. And I've asked them, if you had a place you could live close to work here, what would you do? They'd all live here.
Yeah.
And they're high-paid people that
Professionals, yeah,
that we're
yeah,
ignoring because we don't have the housing for them.
All right, so how many things are these?
Well, it's still one, but I wrote down a new one.
Okay,
And this is, I don't think, you know, in my mind, and the way this was set up, is that this group was gonna create that economic development plan, and there would be some specific recommendations to the village board and specific things that you guys would work on and work around. And I did presume that there would be something that talked about the industrial park, the business park. I thought there'd be something, I think there should be something to that. I think you cover what I think would be, certainly would make sense and which has been at the forefront of your conversations thus far, and that's the igniting and incenting development of key properties. I think a second one that I'm hearing is, and maybe is something that may not be other than a vote of encouragement to the PCCBA, which is to, you know, consider creating multifamily / diversity of housing in other areas of the village, not just the key properties. It's like, accept the challenge. We think you should do that and study that really hard. Don't just gloss over it, or don't not spend time. And that'd be something that you could say, like, and I don't, it doesn't have to take the form of resolution, but I could write something up and bring it back. I think there's some time we can kind of noodle that, but the idea of saying somehow this BAC group set up to do these things is really saying, don't stop thinking about where else this could go.
yeah,
Now, very early on, and this came up in the meeting, and I think it did scare some people, was the idea of, and Deb helped me out here, but there was the idea of the consultant in their first draft of the report said,
It was aggressive.
it was look at creating other, I'll call it like an overlay district over R4, because it's all walkable, all that, you know, feeding into the, you know, the missing middle concept, but over that would allow this type of product, multifamily, kind of inserted on lots in that district. And it's a big district, right?
Or it could expand to R3.
It could, but I think people are like, in that kind of, that conversation, that same consultant comment was made when the village went through the update to its planned residential development tool. The first version of that PRD tool had a very wide funnel for what could be considered, and it had greatly reduced the minimum acreage of a PRD to try to facilitate kind of infill, you know, let's be creative, let's have different tools. And it was, there were some people that showed up at the meeting which narrowed the funnel quickly. And that kind of conversations got limited really early.
So we limited it with the conversations of what, 6 people at a meeting? I don't know. That's
Maybe less.
But yeah, so that's part of the issue. It's like, if one neighbor shows up at a meeting and says, I don't like it, it resonates with everyone on the board. When there's 36 people that don't want to come to a meeting and speak out against their neighbor.
Or they didn't even show because they don't much care.
yeah, but I
Or they
think,
don't care.
Also,
I think
Drew,
that's a role we can play, though. I mean, we talked about this last time. As a former trustee,
right.
if somebody speaks against it and no one is speaking for it, you have no coverage for your opinion.
Right.
So
So that's
you
why
have
this,
nothing to cover yourself.
Yeah.
Could
So
fill that,
for me, this group, you know, being the
Provides that
counterweight to that, I
information.
mean, expecting people who aren't interested to show up is not probably realistic. I think that's a role that this group has to play. I
right.
think we need to be the counterweight to those 6 or whatever it is, people that are negative and frankly
And also
intimidate.
because this group represents more commercial
Yeah,
than certainly we're hearing at the the
PCZB.
comp
Yeah,
plan
yeah,
meetings.
you're hearing from residents.
So that voice is not here.
Yes.
This voice, this group has to deliver that voice.
Okay, yeah. So, Drew, I wanted to come back to
Yeah.
something that I started with before, and it's hidden up there, it says embellish, and that is the industrial park. I think the sales tax dollars that we depend on that come out of that area are so critical, it makes me nervous that we don't have that on our radar screen,
Yeah.
quite honestly. So are we okay if we go float number 6 up here?
We've made some improvements by allowing for retail in that district.
And I'm not sure that we should, we should have, for me, part of this is like what goes in there. So the minute a medical facility goes in there, you have very limited stream of tax dollars. You've got sales tax dollars. You have some because they sell medical equipment, but it isn't like a distribution business or something else in there that's cranking out millions of dollars of potentially taxable stuff. So, you know, my initial take on that park was to have things like medical things be special use to attempt to discourage it and encourage businesses that are going to generate more sales tax dollars. So,
Well, I don't know how exactly the retail plays into it, but remember, the hospital's expanding. I mean, we're having a lot of people around that area, so,
I
you know,
understand,
if there's a
but-
value to restaurants or
I
whatever.
mean, not to be a broken record, but to me, we really need to look at that area as a sales
Okay.
tax generator. And how do we maximize that?
Okay.
How do we-
I
how do we
agree,
sustain-
because that takes some of the burden off the homeowners.
Yes, exactly,
Right,
exactly.
true.
Yeah, so,
We're bringing 7 out of taking them out of the bullpen, putting them on the field. So, Mark, we have gone through the list. There were 17 unique comments, like we talked about. Everybody went up and put 3 on their 3 most important ones. And when they did that, there were 2 that came to the forefront for sure, and that was to facilitate Block 3 to redevelopment and expand multifamily regulatory. And then the others had like 1, maybe 2, and we put those on one side of the room and then gave everybody 2 more stickers to go back. And that's how we got to these. But there's been, the conversation thus far has been centered around what we're talking about is igniting and incenting development of key properties in town. So that's really one topic. And with some subheadings underneath that. And then we've just went through a conversation about there needs to be consideration of the business park and bringing that into this conversation. And then some of the things you should know, the measure success, I told them that's gonna happen, depending on what happens here, so we don't need to focus on that.
Yep.
And then we talked about the 41-176 interchange, and that as a topic was the village is trying to help IDOT make that happen, but it's their, it's their $55 million. Yeah, that's them. That's really how those kind of fell out. And then, the other one about there, which prioritize economic development initiatives, that's what this is, right? So that's happened. Yeah, so that's kind of, these are the key issues that and then you've also missed some conversations around potentially this group, and we talked about the last meeting, filling a role of helping the PCZBA, the village board, and other advisory boards studying key topics to say, this is what the business community thinks about this topic. What was brought up specifically is, yes, we understand that the missing middle housing conversation, you were at that meeting.
Yes.
Was talking about Block 1, Block 3, and the 10 acres over there off 176 right by Jawa. The conversation was here is, why not think more aggressively and broadly and go look at R4, look at R3. Don't be so limited. We encourage you to be brave about it, is essentially. And so what type of megaphone that this would shout, is it a resolution or something, some statement that would come out to kind of encourage that group to keep looking at that hard and think creatively, and don't be afraid to come back with bold ideas.
I think that's a fair summary, Drew, and I think, but recent history, for example, and I spoke of this overlay zoning of country estate zoning, which I think is,
You're talking about Stonebridge specifically?
no, I'm talking about.
Oh,
right now
oh,
I'm
your
talking-
other one, your
right
country
now I'm
estate.
talking about Shore Acres.
Yeah.
So a developer came to the village with a preliminary plan for cluster housing up adjacent to Shore Acres Country Club. And was resoundingly said, denied, basically, before it ever got through the process, saying, this is CE zoning, this would never happen.
Wait,
Without any greater thought to, why wouldn't it be a good thing? There's currently a developer, a couple developers, trying to build 2 houses on Shore Acres Road, being told it's not likely. And for what reason? You know, there's a house falling next to Scott's house. There's a little cottage on the street falling down that's dilapidated, should be rebuilt. It's on an individual lot. It was bought separately from the old Robinson estate. Both of them should be torn down. There's no question about that. I think they've applied for a demolition permit. And the village is saying, well, technically by village zoning, all 3 of these properties are considered one. And so the myriad of things somebody has to jump through when we have this overlay zoning and a private road to get a development done that would benefit not only the current property owner that owns one of the parcels, but a new resident to Lake Bluff, it's like, how much money is one supposed to spend to get through that process if the village isn't already thinking this could be a good thing? You know, I think we really have to look, not only R5, I think we have to look at our zoning districts and look at how they overlay and see how onerous it is for any property owner within that district to do something that may be the most appropriate use for that site.
Is what Brad is addressing within the scope of what the PCZBA is looking at now, or is it a little bit beyond?
yeah, it came before tentatively, you know, in the initial
An
preliminary.
informal review.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um,
But I meant the thing that you're doing with missing middle, is that?
The missing middle has not, in fact, the consultant came to the village and said, we really like the Zinni property, Ralph Blodgett, given its proximity to the lake and the downtown and the walkability of it, and that may get redeveloped someday, and that we think that's a great location for missing middle. It kind of follows the old, pattern of the camp meeting area. You know,
But the Zenny property was eliminated from any further discussions because it was the perception of the village, it'll never pass, why even waste our time studying it?
and so they said, go to the 10 acres west of the Jawa, and they moved off that site, and I saw the concepts that they started kicking around. They were excited about that, you know, presented some unique ideas and opportunities given the land layout. You know, there's some ravines in there, there's some neat things. But that got off the radar early.
So looking at the estate.
But it got off the
zoning-
radar, not because of the consultants, it got off the radar because of the village.
The PCZBA, yes.
Well, it was also privately owned as opposed to a piece of land that was owned by the village. So if,
All these properties we're talking about, with the exception of the 10 acres, are privately owned.
So the conversation that, you know, that Brad is having about, you know, is the estate zoning appropriate? That isn't being addressed anyplace. at this time.
It could be, but I think what happens with the, for example, the project that was brought forward recently about the informal creation of three homes on really one zoning lot, but that was kind of a
That's a
misnomer
whoops.
because it's a private road and the
talking about
subdivision.
Shore Acre.
Yes, the private road the code does not account for the private lane, which overlays 2 contiguous lots.
so it suddenly made them all
It
one
tripped
lot.
up, it tripped
Yeah,
up, and
nobody saw that one. It was an
nobody in the
unintended
PCZBA
consequence.
felt like that was anything other than a layup, we gotta fix the code. right? That's, nobody's trying to take away that you have two
Nobody
lots
was
here.
arguing that that was a
not the
whoops.
problem.
Well,
The
there's
issue
three
is,
lots.
well, hold on, there are 3 lots of record,
Right.
but they're not zoning lots, because
That's
that,
because they were all brought in
I understand.
as a single
I know that.
parcel at one time.
but the issue is, up in Shore Acres specifically, is the absence of utilities to serve that area, and that came out, and that was in the staff menu, report to the PCZBA, is that area is one, it is very expensive to drag water and sewer there, and then so you have.
Septic.
Nobody's asking to bring sewer.
Well,
water.
but the lot area of the other small house that's falling in, you know, that, I mean, so the idea of having a small, it's not even big enough to support a septic field,
I don't think they have any interest in keeping it that size. They want to expand.
other than you couldn't have a septic field on it.
You could have a single septic field for there's 200,000 square feet over. There's plenty of room for septic.
But the idea is, when you start thinking about increasing intensity of residential properties in that area, the absence of that becomes a problem, that there's not water and sanitary sewer serving those homes. That creates an issue.
At a certain lot size shrinking.
Yeah, and so,
Most all homes in the United States are on well and septic.
but I think the issue also is that, and that's what came up also at the meeting where I think Deb's going, is that the way that property has been developed over time is generally large lot, and there's not anything smaller than 2 acres up there. So there's very few sites in that subdivision, but that hasn't been really stuck, because again, like you said, most of it was annexed into the village as is.
You know, in all fairness,
And it was not, I'm sorry, it was not part of a planned development, right? That's just the way it was developed.
the failure of this, I don't even know about, 3 lot opportunity, 3 home opportunities is the same as Block 3, Stonebridge, et cetera. People are tripping over their own municipal requirements and codes. You're not gonna resolve anything unless you change it. This whole
So-
conversation is kind of like circle,
So
end of the story.
Drew, you'd addressed this earlier, there's like an overarching thing here, which I'm maybe combining several things that you said, but to encourage the PCZBA to be as.
Be
as
bold and
aggressive,
creative.
be
Yeah,
bold,
yeah.
Could that be, naive question, could that be handled by exception?
What?
Without having to overhaul the zoning, the Shore Acres issue?
The road issue that nobody, we need to clean the code up, and that's gonna be, that's not gonna
Planned out.
cost the owner of the property anything. We're just gonna send an amendment to the PCZBA to clean up the code to address that. That should not, nobody questions that.
Right.
In fact,
Nobody
there
had
were,
an issue with
the direction was change the code so that there was one, I would say, some early conversation about should that be a process that the PCB looks at still? And then the consensus was no, that should just be, you know, the code changes so that it's a
It was
non-issue.
an unintended consequence.
yeah.
Of a private road.
Does that answer your question?
Not exactly, but I understand where you're coming from.
Okay.
So then,
All
what's
right.
the answer? Where's your glasses, Drew?
So I've got 2 strategies, and it's the key, it's what I said before, it's Ignite, Stonebridge, and Block 3, the key properties for development. Ignite and incent development of key properties with all the sub stuff under there, zoning, taking down the hurdles, making sure, insisting on quality, et cetera, et cetera. Then there is the embellish / maximize the industrial park, and that could be, I guess, buttressed up with some more specificity,
Yeah,
perhaps.
yeah.
And if I was going to say something, this goes back to the plan itself. Hold on, let me go back to that.
So I guess one of the things that Mark and I heard is the sense that some of the properties in that industrial park probably could be better than they are or different than they are. So I think instead of, I guess the question was, are the properties that are out there do they allow as much business as could potentially occur out there? You know, some of those properties are, I don't know. So I guess, is there anything that the village can do or should do that would cause more development out there? I mean, to your point, Jeff, you know, you feel like occupancy has been high, will continue to be high.
Drew, have things been turned down there? I mean, have people come with requests to expand or bring in
No.
different things?
No,
Okay,
They've accepted what's there and.
is underutilized,
So I guess the question is,
Well-
can it be more than it is?
right.
And I don't have an answer for that. I don't know how to get it.
The key factor is defining what qualities, what outcomes we're really looking for.
Sales tax revenue.
Exactly.
That's
And
it.
so when we look at that and we say that there's something that's lacking or missing, we need to kind of define what the measurement point is.
Restaurant.
I mean, we
Sales
have,
tax revenue.
we have physicians' offices, we have large physicians'
missing middle.
offices, we have large office buildings, and we have some very small, the little boutique suites. for
one-offs,
lack-
yeah.
Well, you know, I'm not sure what you would call them.
Yeah, no, I
The
know what you mean.
businesses that are up against 41.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, and those can generate good revenue. I mean, I was in a space like that, and, you know, I generated a lot of sales tax revenue for Mundelein. So, I mean, there's nothing wrong with those small spaces.
They're not rentable. I have a building in Waukegan Road that's probably, I don't know, 70% rented. People don't want small office space anymore.
What is small?
You know, I don't know, 1,200, 1,500
Oh,
square
yeah,
feet.
yeah, that's
They don't
small.
want it.
Yeah,
It's empty.
no, I was thinking 5,000 to 6,000.
Drew, is there any
There's not a lot of
sense
people
in
doing office
adding,
space movement either. I mean,
Yeah.
that thing is kind of like going away.
Yeah.
Office space emptiness
area on
is going to
41
be greater than
to
retail
any of this
emptiness.
Yeah.
list? That
And so,
Yeah.
you know,
whole
pushing
stretch
people
north,
for a tax revenue basis to,
or not?
sell things.
Probably.
Is probably the way to go, as
I
opposed
mean,
to
it's
just.
another,
talking about on the
Office.
east side of Fort Road.
No, that's where, because an office isn't necessarily gonna generate
did
sales tax
bring in
revenue.
a
It's gonna be a
hockey rink.
distribution business or something that,
I think
yeah, product is flowing
A
through.
Lovel's type of restaurant or something in that area would be, it's such a convenient location for somebody.
So, Drew, are we at a point that,
Well, here's what we could do. And you tell me if you're,
Restaurants aren't currently allowed on the
it'd be a
west side,
special use. I mean, they don't have to amend the code, but they can come and ask for a special use.
but they can't by right.
Correct.
That's what we have to change. We have
No.
to figure out
With all
what's the
due
best
respect,
use
Brett.
and make it available by right, and then it'll happen.
where are you talking about, Brad?
light
The
industry.
industrial park.
No, I disagree. I think we should have, I think if it is not sales tax revenue generating, it
Restaurants
should be
do.
a special, not like a distribution business or something.
There's too many distribution businesses being
You're
built
talking
all
about like
around
an
us.
Amazon site?
I'm not, no. I don't mean, I mean smaller end. I mean, I owned one. I'm not talking about end user, I'm talking about industrial distribution.
But why wouldn't a restaurant be a good use out there?
Because it doesn't generate the same sales tax revenue.
Does a hotel?
A hotel.
Hotel tax
generate
could-
a
yeah.
lot of
Hotel tax,
sales
yeah.
tax
I
revenue.
mean, that I would think.
I mean, a hotel would be a wonderful thing out there. That, you know,
With a restaurant
when,
in it.
when
Put the
Stone,
restaurant in it, and then he's
when,
happy to.
yeah, well, yes, when Stonebridge was around, I mean, that generated a lot of sales tax revenue, and that was not, you know, as you know,
I'd
I
like
mean,
to
it wasn't a
see
big
a hotel
property.
there.
Yeah.
I'd rather
Getting
drive
close.
to Westlake Bluff to eat than Libertyville. Or sleep, maybe.
All right, while Drew is noodling, are there
Well,
any, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, I think I could, based off of the direction tonight, I can go back and rework these and come back with something that I think would be responsive to where you are, adding in the industrial park and what the embellishment, and what I'd like to do is go back to I know there's things in the Waukegan Road corridor plan that have not been done yet, that I could write as sub-tactics underneath that embellish.
Okay,
that I think would make sense. I think what you guys are also asking is, there has been conversation at the Plan Commission Zoning Board of Appeals. They are gonna talk about this as the comp plan update is, you know, if we're looking to develop, to write the next 20, 30-year plan, I think to your point, Paul, is what is the remaining useful life of these structures that are not, that may be functioning as, let's say, storage or warehouse, but they're too short, right? They don't have the high vertical ceilings, and that came up in the Waukegan, you know, and the village changed its codes around that to try to help facilitate.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, that hasn't really happened, right? The idea, they've been building, because of those boxes, those mega boxes are happening.
Yeah, and they should.
Yeah.
That isn't what.
So I think that, even though the village opened the door to the idea of building like the you know, like taller, they haven't come.
We don't have
Yeah.
space for 300,000 square
Yeah.
feet.
So the village did stretch its code there, but you can go back and look and say, what else should we be doing from that? And I can go back and read that and put some stuff and throw that in front of you all, and you guys can react to that.
Okay.
And then, I think once all this gets organized, I think that'll be helpful for everybody.
And it's not up there, but I know you wrote it down. That is, you know, encouraging the PCCBA to be.
Yeah.
Bold, I think were the words. you
Yeah.
used.
And I think a 20 or 30-year plan shouldn't be a focus. You know, I mean, Brad complains about one from 1970, and nothing's happened since that.
That's not true. Some things have, but here's what I like, the
Gotta be
19,
organic.
listen, the 1997 comp plan, the thing that was the chief priority coming out of that document was, look at the CBD. You know, go immediately study the CBD, and they did the moratorium, they did all, and look, it's taken some time in the 20 years, but look at the last little hiccups, right? Block 3, which ironically was not even included in that original TESCA study.
Well, we had an active bank there when we did the plan in 97, so.
But to the point, plan should go, right, I'm not criticizing, but that's also been a big hiccup, right? But the rest of it, look what's unfolded on Block 1, look what's happened around Block 2, all those.
Yeah, and we
uses.
have greater pedestrian access around town.
Yeah.
But I mentioned that long-range survey
Yeah.
survey, which
Yeah.
was the last one done for the 97 plan,
Yeah.
where we got results back. And what I saw out of that survey more than anything was when the question was asked, how long do you plan to live in Lake Bluff? And the answer predominantly was through retirement, which spoke volumes about the quality of life in Lake Bluff, though we haven't gone beyond that to find a place for people wanting to live through retirement to stay in the community.
Yeah.
Since 97.
All right, so you're good, Drew.
I think I have enough direction to
Okay.
come back with a functional
Okay.
list for you guys.
All right, so we're gonna go back to, item 2 on the agenda. It's consideration of the minutes. Have we got a quorum, Drew?
Good enough.
Okay. Consideration of the minutes of the January 31st, 2024 regular meeting minutes. Do I have a motion to approve?
So,
Moved by Deb, second.
Second.
There were just some grammatical things that.
If you have little typos that are non-substantive, please hand them to me and I'll correct them.
Okay, any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Village administrator's report, Drew?
I have nothing more to report.
Okay. Chair report, the only thing I've got, and we started with this, was the resignation of members Douglas and Zeitzwitz, and the need perhaps to have somebody that is representative of the commercial area to our west. So if there are any ideas about people that we would suggest.
You mentioned at the last meeting, I sold the building to a guy on North Shore Drive that has a construction business for hospitals, and he just never got back to me affirmatively, whether he'd be interested or not.
That's not Altunian,
No,
because they moved out there too, you know.
Oh, they did.
They're on.
they're on 176.
No, I bought
No.
their
No,
building.
this is,
No, they're,
I bought Tunian's building. He
no, they're
moved over to
moving
Sherwood.
into, what's that? Oh my gosh. It's right by Lake Forest Peds.
Yeah, they're gonna try and do a second floor to the building.
Yeah.
all right.
They just got approved a site plan from the ABR.
Yeah.
It wasn't Eltunian.
So,
I don't think Eltunian would come back after Block 3.
So,
He moved in town, he liked it so much.
so
No, it's eventually
is,
better building
is
for
that opportunity dead then, do you think?
I'll
with
reach
this
out again.
individual?
I'll
Okay.
reach, because I think it would be good to have a business owner.
Yeah, I
in
do.
there.
I think it'd be wonderful to have one or two, quite frankly.
I'd be willing to talk to Elko as a long-term organization business out in that,
Okay.
in the business park.
Okay, and you've got a contact there.
And I have a contact there, and I think that they've expressed an interest in having more involvement
Oh, okay.
with
That
the
sounds good.
village.
All right,
And
okay.
I'd certainly be willing to
Okay,
give
all
them
right,
a
well,
call.
thank you. So Brad, you'll follow up with your guy and Mark will make
Yeah.
a contact? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, committee member reports. All right, if that's it, then I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved?
Moved by Deb, second by Paul. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you. 1 second, let me turn off this meeting.